A disabled woman in a wheelchair has hot coffee poured over her and is publicly humiliated in a cafe, and everyone looks away. Everyone except for one young soldier and a small trident emblem mounted on her chair. No one in the cafe knew that this woman once threw herself onto a grenade to save her team, but they are about to witness something no one expected when her brothers in arms arrive. And justice this time doesn't need the police. On a Saturday morning in Charleston, the sky was a gentle blue like a cool palm. The Pine and Bramble Cafe sat tucked beneath a dense oak canopy, where locals came for a moment of peace and just strong enough coffee. Everything in the shop moved slowly from the soft hiss of the espresso machine to the lazy spin of the ceiling fan above. But within that calm there lay a deeper, sharper stillness. Avery Monroe sat alone in the cafe's most hidden corner, not because she preferred solitude, but because the world had learned to leave her there. She needed nothing, no pitying glances, no awkward attention, and certainly no one asking if she was all right. She sat in a faded wheelchair with a titanium frame once polished bright as freshly wiped blood. On the armrest gleamed a small metal emblem, a sealed trident, quiet, unassuming, unexplained. Patrons saw it but said nothing, as if speaking would force them to confront their own cowardice. Some stole quick looks, then looked away, as though the light from that symbol might blind them. Others bent over their cups, pretending to be absorbed in their coffee. Avery didn't look at anyone, not out of arrogance, but because she was used to being regarded as an ethical puzzle. Her appearance was unremarkable: brown hair tied neat, pale skin that spoke of long hospital stays, gray eyes as still as a rain-soaked pond. Yet there was something about her that made people fear to approach. It wasn't compassion, but a nameless reverence. The silence around her was not soft, but as sharp as glass. Few could endure it for long. It felt as if she harbored a secret so vast that if you stared too long, it would pull you in. Then the door swung open. The roar of an engine stirred road dust, heavy boots clattered on the floor, and the loud laughter of three young men shattered the quiet like a hammer on glass. The entire cafe froze in mid-breath. A waitress startled and dropped her spoon. They strode in as though they owned the place, without pausing to look around. Military boots, tank tops, tattoos sweeping both arms, the body language of men who'd never truly been tested. Avery did not budge or lift her head, but she knew. She sensed the shift in the air like a predator detecting danger before its prey moved. One of them spotted her, noticed the emblem on her chair. He froze for a moment, then grinned, not because he understood, but because he thought he saw something vulnerable, something ripe for mockery. What he didn't know was, this woman had walked through places no one ever returned from. She was not someone you should dare to challenge. If you ever thought silence was a sign of weakness, have you ever seen the storm before it breaks?
Welcome to Veteran Best Stories, where the war ends, but the stories live on. From the foxholes to front porches, we honor the silent battles our veterans still fight. Subscribe and walk with us beyond the battlefield.
He approached without hurry, yet with the certainty of someone convinced he was about to uncover something interesting. Chad, tall, sun-bronzed like a man who spends weekends shirtless on pickup truck hoods, stopped a few paces from her. His arms were covered in meaningless tattoos, skulls, daggers, and names, long since blurred over with fresh ink. Avery did not turn her head. Her eyes remained fixed on the window where sunlight filtered through dusty glass. He leaned down, his broad finger brushing lightly against the sealed trident affixed to her wheelchair, an accidental gesture that was entirely deliberate. As if he were testing whether that metal emblem carried any special power. This just for show, he muttered, half mocking, half taunting. Or did it come free in a cereal box from the Navy? Soft laughter rippled from behind. His two friends stood a short distance away, arms crossed, amusement painted across their faces. One of them tore open a sugar packet, balled it up, and tossed it. The packet struck Avery's left shoulder and fell to the floor with scarcely a sound. Yet what mattered was that she didn't flinch, didn't brush it away, didn't turn, didn't glare. No visible reaction at all. It was that very silence that irked Chad. A man like him was unused to being ignored and couldn't stand the thought that his actions left no mark. He lived for reactions. Without one, he ceased to exist. The half-drunk coffee before Avery teetered on the edge of the table. Chad suddenly reached as if for a napkin, then deliberately knocked the cup off balance. Thick, hot coffee sloshed over the tabletop, splashing down onto Avery's legs and the wooden floor. Steam rose softly from the soaked fabric. A muffled oof echoed somewhere in the cafe, but no one stood up. No one moved forward. Avery's face remained unchanged. Now her eyes were no longer staring out the window. They were fixed on him. Not with menace, but with that nonchalance of someone who considers you unworthy of anger. Chad sneered. "Oh, sorry, I'm so clumsy." His voice soared theatrically. The cafe's atmosphere drained away. Some patrons pretended to check their phones. An older man set down his coffee, opened his mouth as if to speak, then fell silent. The young waitress behind the counter gripped a towel, her eyes reddened. But Lucas Reyes did not stay silent. He sat 2 tables away, hand resting on his thigh, posture as rigid as if he were still in formation. He had been watching the 3 intruders since they entered. But when his gaze fell on Avery's trident, his entire body snapped to attention. Not everyone knows that symbol, but to one who's faced death, it reads clearer than any flag. He looked at the coffee pooling on the floor, at Avery enduring everything without flinching, and he understood this was no ordinary woman. No one ordinary could sit like that. No ordinary person could endure public humiliation without cracking. Lucas drew in a breath, rose to his feet. He did not stride forward, he did not throw a punch. He pulled out his phone and slipped out the back door where the streetlight streamed in like a reminder. His hand trembled as he dialed a number he'd been told to call only when there was no other choice. The line clicked almost instantly. A low, clear voice answered, dangerous in its calm. Lucas spoke one sentence. "Charleston, Pine and Bramble Cafe. There's someone who needs remembering." He paused, then added, more slowly, "She's got a real trident." Then he hung up and turned back inside. The insult continued. If you see someone silent for so long they should have broken and they haven't, perhaps you are sitting before a person who has carried the weight of the world on their shoulders. Dear viewers, stay tuned for the next part that will astonish you. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see viewers joining us from around the world. Charleston at midday. The sun hung like a copper plate, scorching the old streets. Cicadas droned in the breeze, tapping softly against the pavement. Near the Church and Columbus intersection, 2 black SUVs turned onto the sidewalk without signaling. Their engines shut off, almost simultaneously, neat and synchronized. No sirens, no doors slamming, everything unfolded with a chilling, silent precision. From each door emerged 2 men, 8 in total, tall and broad-shouldered, clad in mismatched uniforms. Black shirts, dark jeans, lightly dusted military boots. No logos, no medals. Only their physiques, as if their muscles told their story without need for insignia. They spoke not a word, did not check their phones, did not smile. They simply stood on the sidewalk for a moment, eyes sweeping every window, as though listening for which walls might be gasping. as though sensing something was amiss before even stepping inside. One among them stood taller, his back as straight as steel, head tilted slightly toward the cafe door. No signal was needed. The others instantly formed two lines and advanced toward the weathered wooden door of Pine and Bramble Cafe. Inside, the tension was taut as a drawn bow. Chad was no longer loud. He retreated half a step from Avery. Something in her gaze had shifted, not the vacant indifference he had seen before, but an ice-cold stillness, like water straining to burst its banks. One of Chad's companions opened his mouth to speak, then shut it when a dark silhouette passed the window. The door swung open. 8 men entered in perfect formation. They brushed past no one. They yielded to no one. They moved as though the very space made way for them. They did not glance around hastily. They scanned, eyes moving from table to table, evaluating, analyzing, gathering data, as though every life in the room were a variable in an unspoken calculation. Patrons nearly held their breath. None knew what was unfolding, yet all sensed this was no ordinary cafe visit. Too many signs had already appeared: synchronized silence, instinctive formation, stances neither defensive nor vulnerable. Lucas Reyes, the young soldier who had placed the call, rose slowly from his corner. Unhurried, unobtrusive, he stepped a few meters away and met eyes with the leader. A single nod, prearranged and unspoken. No words were necessary. The lead man, with crop-cut sultan pepper hair, a straight nose, and steel-gray eyes, turned toward Avery's table. He made no eye contact with Chad. He did not need to. He saw the spilled coffee, Avery's unflinching gaze, and the sealed trident gleaming beneath the dim light. A tiny signal yet to those who had fought side by side. It was a wordless summons. The group advanced, slowly, yet each step drained the room of air. They needed no speech. The atmosphere spoke for them. Chad now stood frozen, his hands limp. His initial aggression had retreated into his bones. He watched impassively as each man approached, their unblinking eyes and flexing arms moving in silent rhythm. No one laughed. No one shouted. But Chad knew something was about to happen, and it would be anything but gentle. When those who require no introduction enter the room, you understand, order is about to be restored. The air inside the cafe was thick as the sky before a storm. The ceiling fans still turned, but no one heard them anymore. The entire room seemed locked in time, save for the slow footsteps of the man leading the SEAL team, a master chief, broad-shouldered, salt and pepper hair neatly trimmed, his steely gray-blue eyes as cold as December seas. He approached Avery's table, ignoring Chad and everyone else. He looked only at her wheelchair and the familiar emblem affixed to it. No one spoke. When he stopped, the entire formation behind him halted in perfect unison, as if their breaths had been programmed to synchronize. Then he spoke. "You see this?" His voice was low, not loud, yet carrying a weight that made hearts slow their beat. "That small badge on the frame, do you know what it is?" No one answered. Even Chad no longer smirked. He bowed his head, eyes fixed on the coffee-stained wood floor. The Master Chief continued to look only at Avery. This is not decoration, not a souvenir, not a cereal box sticker, as you imagined. He leaned forward, his tone dropping to a near whisper. This is the symbol of blood, sweat, and courage of those who step into darkness to pull others into the light. He swept his gaze around the cafe. This woman, her name is First Class Ava Monroe. She was a SEAL. His words cut the silence like a blade through cloth. The entire room felt drawn toward him. Mosul, 2021. A night as dark and dense as oil. We were ordered to storm an occupied building where terrorists held 5 hostages. 3rd floor. Every corner covered by snipers. No second chances. He paused. His eyes flickered as though the echoes of gunfire still rang in his ears. We had just freed the hostages when we were ambushed. A grenade landed in the middle of the room, no time to toss it back, no exit. He tightened his hand by his side, the same hand that had held hundreds of lives in its grip. And she, Ava hesitated not at all. No shout, no name called. She jumped atop that grenade, using her body to smother it, a reflex born of instinct. Silence fell. She lost both legs, but we lived. From behind, a younger man stepped forward, jaw strong, a faint scar line on his forehead. He wore no sunglasses like the others. His reddened eyes glistened, and his voice trembled like the first cold wind of autumn. "I was in that room," he said, looking only at Avery. I remember the blast. I remember how she shielded us like a living wall. I survived. I have a 4-year-old son. I have a family. Because of her." Avery said nothing. Her expression remained unchanged, yet her gray eyes flickered slightly. The young man swallowed and stepped back. No one in the cafe moved. An elderly woman pressed her hand to her heart in silent prayer. The waitress set down her coffee, hands trembling. A minute ago, she was just the woman in the wheelchair at the corner table. Now, she was the reason an entire SEAL team had entered this cafe to stand by her side. "Are you certain you'd recognize a hero?" If she sat quietly among the crowd, demanding no applause. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or grab a drink of water, then stay tuned for the rest of this surprising story. Comment 1 if you're enjoying it, so we know you're still here. The cafe was engulfed in a silence no longer born of fear. It was the kind of stillness created only by an undeniable truth when a symbol ceases to exist on paper and stands alive before you. Chad stood frozen, his back hunched slightly, his usual arrogance gone. His eyes flickered between panic and shame, as though for the first time he realized there were things beyond his understanding. He had spoken words that couldn't be taken back, acted as if the world were his private stage, and now he found himself at the center of a lesson no one wanted to star in. His hand trembled, each finger trembling uncontrollably. Something wet glistened on his cheek. He couldn't tell if it was sweat or tears, but in that moment, it didn't matter. Avery remained seated. She did not rush to react. She merely watched him, as though waiting to see how this man would face his wrongdoing. There was no anger in her eyes, nor glee. Only one thing, an unyielding calm. Then, slowly, she placed both hands on her chair's arms, braced herself, and rose to her feet. She had no natural legs, but her meticulously crafted prosthetics held her upright, straight, dignified, and steady as if she had never lost anything at all. Chad dared not meet her gaze, but she looked him squarely in the eye. That look was not anger. It was the gaze of someone who has faced death, who has seen lives tear apart before her eyes and could do nothing but endure. It was the look of one who has endured enough pain to fear nothing more. "You see this," she said, lightly touching the sealed trident on her chair's armrest. "And you dismiss it. You call it a toy, a decoration." Her voice was steady and low, almost a whisper, yet each word rang clear. "You look at this chair and think I'm weak. You look at these legs and think I'm less than you, but you're wrong." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I didn't lose my legs. I gave them away so others could come home. I didn't lose anything I sacrificed." No one in the cafe moved. Even those farthest away held their breath, afraid a single motion might snatch the lesson from their ears. Chad lowered his head, and in a voice barely above a whisper, he stammered something resembling an apology. Not entirely coherent, not entirely complete, but Hart felt a fact you could see in the way his fist clenched and his shoulders shook. One of his companions stepped back, face ashen. The other stared at the floor, lips pressed tight like a child caught doing something he couldn't even understand himself. Then the Master Chief spoke. His voice was neither loud nor menacing, but sharp as a razor. "Pay for your drinks," he said, each word clear as a bell. "Pay her." He didn't need to add the rest. "Then leave and don't come back." Though unspoken, everyone heard it. No one in the cafe stirred, yet each person felt as if freed from an invisible weight. A collective exhale drifted out the windows. The elderly woman at the corner table dabbed her eyes, speechless. Avery sat back down. No victory celebrations, no revenge. Simply reclaiming the position that was always rightfully hers. Do you know what merits someone true respect? It's not that they never fall, but that, when they stand, they make the whole world bow. No one in the cafe could recall who clapped first. Perhaps the elderly man by the window, perhaps the young woman with the laptop working on her draft. But then everyone rose. Applause thundered not for drama, not for performance, but because something had been restored, something within each person cleansed of silence and shame. The cafe owner, a small man with graying hair but warm eyes, walked toward Avery, clutching his apron as though it were a lifeline. He said little. He simply bowed his head, his eyes glistening. "Today," he rasped, "none of us will let you pay a single cent." No one objected, no one interjected. Silent nods rippled through the room like gentle waves on a beach after a storm. Lucas Reyes, the young soldier who had made the call, who had silently witnessed every moment, stepped to her side. He stood at attention, shoulders squared as if drilled his whole life, and saluted. No words, no introduction, but enough to declare that he had seen what needed to be seen and that he would not forget. She did not return the salute. She only nodded slightly. But in her eyes lay recognition not from a senior officer, but from someone who had stood face to face with death, who recognized another, who kept the flame of memory alive without being asked. The 8 SEALs behind the Master Chief did not leave. Instead, they pulled out chairs not in formation, not on command. They arranged a circle, just large enough to surround Avery without crowding her. No one said, "Protect." They merely did what felt most natural. When one of their own returned, the whole team gathered to sit beside her. The tension that had weighed on the room transformed into a gentle quiet. A soft jazz tune rose, piano notes tinkling like early summer rain on a tin roof. Light slanted through the dusty window panes, glancing across the wooden floor and touching the small trident on Avery's wheelchair armrest, turning it into a silent lighthouse. Avery looked around. No one saw her as a stranger. No one's gaze was curious or pitying. Only respectful respect that cannot be given, only earned by surviving what others cannot even imagine. She smiled, a slow, small smile, as though meant for no one but herself. Yet it lightened the entire room. That smile was not born of victory, but of finding one's family, no blood ties required. Only those who had stood under the same dangerous sky. No one spoke of Chad. No one asked his name. He left like a shadow, quietly, and for the first time in his life, perhaps he understood that silence is not disgrace, but an opportunity to begin again. No one spoke of missing limbs. No one asked about battles. They shared jokes about leaving rifles at the supply depot, dialing the wrong coordinates. They laughed together as if time had rolled back 10 years. As if bullets, blood, and bombs had become stories told in this intimate circle. Avery sat among them, needing no words. She only needed to be present. And in that moment, she was no longer a wounded soldier. She was the heart of a family no one in the cafe could truly understand. Yet everyone felt, in a noisy world where strength is often mistaken for shouting, Avery Monroe's story reminds us that true power lies in calmness, sacrifice, and the capacity to forgive. She did not seek revenge. She did not have to raise her voice to demand justice. She stood up with honor and let others see not her pain, but the pride that survives it. We hope today's story not only moved you, but also brought you healing, whether you are a veteran, someone who has been hurt, or simply someone seeking to restore faith in humanity. If you have ever met someone like Avery, or witnessed something similar, please share that story in the comments below. We want to hear from you. We want to build a community where kindness is never seen as weakness. Please hit like, subscribe, and share this video with friends who need a reminder that justice does not always arrive with gunfire. Sometimes it comes on a wheelchair, in a circle of friends, and in a heart that refuses to be defeated.